legally valid, and it can now be used by Paul to demonstrate that he's got legal authority on your behalf.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The difference it will make is that they will have to talk to us now.
I'm glad that he trusts us to do it.
Well, I'm very much happier that should anything like this happen in future, I've got some protection. So it's as simple as that, really.
Well, I'm sure many of you watching were like me, actually. I rather filled up watching that film. But when we spoke to Talk Talk, it said that it was sorry for the difficulties that Gus, Lisa and Paul faced in closing Gus's account, adding that it has now refunded Gus in full and paid a goodwill gesture, which has been accepted. Well, I've got a couple of Garys with me today. I've got Gary, who's very familiar with our solicitor, of course, and we have another lovely Gary with us, Gary Dawson, from the Spinal Injuries Association. Gary, what would you have done for the people in the film we've just seen?
In that situation, when we do find people who haven't got that immediate support network in place, the Spinal Injuries Association offers services which would be perfectly positioned to help with facilitating those immediate phone calls through either our advocacy team or our support coordinators, which will just get the ball rolling to enable the initial information that is required to get that person in touch with the right person to help them get to the information that they need so that they can start paying their bills or deferring payments where necessary.
Watching that film, I could almost feel the utter frustration of not getting anywhere. What experience have you had with companies when you've been trying to advise on a case or fight a case?
I think what's really interesting about the situations that you see is the individual who is, as you can see in that bed there, the frustrations that they're feeling dealing with these huge conglomerate companies, to pay their bills or to cancel their bills when needed, they're also dealing with this huge catastrophic injury that has devastating impacts on their life.
And do you think that these companies think of the emotional, physical, mental aspect of a situation like this?
I don't think they necessarily always do. I know that they'll put processes in place for this specific situation, but I don't think they necessarily assume that this individual may be doing it on their own, or they may not have that support network in place.
I mean, I was just thinking about the legal side of it, Gary, and you and I have talked on this programme before about power of attorney, and I myself was a bit reluctant to sign it at one point.
You were.
But you talked about two different types. There's the long-lasting one and then an ordinary one. So just quickly explain the difference between the two.
What we put in place for Gus was an ordinary power of attorney, which certainly works in the short term. The crucial thing is that Gus has mental capacity, so he's able to create that document, and it's only in relation to property and financial affairs.
So he would have a choice over how much of his life would be handed over?
Absolutely. He can say on the ordinary power of attorney what decisions he wants his attorneys to make, and he can segment those decisions if he wants to. But under an ordinary power of attorney, you can't choose to appoint attorneys to deal with your health and welfare. And longer term, it is sensible to put in place a lasting power of attorney for property and finances and health and welfare, because we don't know whether we're going to lose capacity in the future through accident or illness.
Just finally, actually, on this, Gary, what is your final advice, really, to people who might end up in a similar position as we've seen?
My advice would be to get in touch with the Spinal Injuries Association. We have support coordinators who have spinal cord injuries who go out and share their lived experience and can talk through the process of what will happen next, anything from rehabilitation, post-discharge, as well as things like contacting your bank and seeking advice on sorting out your finances.
Well, I love what you're doing, and it's a bit like the two Gary show today, but thank you both very, very much indeed. And we put more information about setting up an ordinary power of attorney as opposed to the lasting one. So that's an ordinary power of attorney on our website. I hope you know it by now, bbc.co.uk/ripoffbritain. Thank you.